Okay. So the second area of responsibility is the annual tax filing for nonprofit status. And the third one is really it's the portal maintenance now in Club Express. And it's the membership list and the information and the current officers. That may be a responsibility that's shared with others like the president of the club, but usually in a club, it's the treasurer who's responsible for that. So let's go to financial first. Financial functions, the transactions. The most basic one is to collect member dues either every year or every 6 months. And that involves issuing a dues statement to members and invoicing them. Like I said, it's usually every 6 months, but some clubs do it every year. We'll see I'll talk about how that works to your advantage. Second one is to pay approved club expenses. And that would be US and Serra International dues twice a year, which are due on January 15th and July 15th, and any region fees, and also any other payments that, for example, for meals or food services, anything like that. Third one is to receive and timely deposit payments and donations to the club. Make sure that checks don't sit around, that they get in. Fourth one is to reconcile bank accounts and balance the checkbook monthly. Make sure you know how much is in the account. Fifth is to manage and report on club savings and investment accounts if you have any. And the sixth one is to manage banking relationships. Uh, and just some points here. The banking relationship is usually approved annually by the board. I think that's a good practice. A very important one is this one that's highlighted here, is assure that there's always more than one authorized signer on the account. I'll tell you an example we had. We had a club that the treasurer had been treasurer for a long time, and he developed Alzheimer's. And the club was unable to actually function for almost 4 months while they were trying to figure out how to get somebody else authorized to be a signer on the account. So having somebody else, usually it'd be the president, I would think, but anybody else who's an officer to be authorized is a very important step there. And then a final one is keep the board apprised of any banking fees, charges, or interest. Up until now, there hasn't been much in the way of interest, but now there is some. And the banking fees and the charges can tend to eat up the account pretty good. So you need to keep an eye on those. So that's financial transactions. This is just a sort of a slide in case you don't know it. I think most of you do, but this is the current due structure for Serra International and US Serra. As you know, those invoices come as one combined number, and then they're split up in terms in the Chicago office, how they go to the Serra International and to the US Serra dues. So a full member is $50. A spouse and under 35 is $25. And again, the Serra International office issues those invoices to clubs in June and December, and payment is due July 15th to January 15th, and January 15th for the different parts of the year. Here's just something I want to comment on: deductibility of dues. I've gotten this question a million times. The real question on the deductibility of your dues for your members now is a question of, do they receive any financial benefit? So here's basically what it comes down to. If a club charges dues that do not include food, let me back up just a minute. There are two basic methods that clubs operate by financially. One is that clubs charge just for the dues and for programs that they have in Serra, and then they charge for food separately when the person signs up for a particular event. They pay a food bill for that. There are other clubs that charge for the food right in with the dues for the whole year. So their dues, I think I remember the Duluth club's dues were $425 a year for a full member, and that includes all the food for the year. So it would not be possible for the Duluth club members to take the full $425 as a charitable deduction. But for clubs that do not charge for food, since most of the money goes to nonprofit organizations, either Serra, US Serra, or maybe the diocese or something, I think you can allow deductibility of those dues for those people in terms of tax deductions. Are there any questions or comments on that from anybody? That's a little bit of a gray area, but more and more clubs are allowing people that don't charge for dues to just write off their the dues. Bill Cook, do you have an opinion on that?
Mike, I think what you said is correct. I would make sure your club doesn't bill for the food at the same time they bill for the dues.
Right. Okay. Any other comments on that from anybody? Okay. We can come back to these things when we get through. So let's talk about reporting now. This should be done at each board meeting. And basically, it's a report on income and disbursements since the last report. So, and it also includes if there have been special events. People like to know, did we make money? Did we lose money? You know, how much in each case on those events. So there's a report on special club events. Usually there's a bank reconciliation that is provided. And if you do have the downloads of the support documents, I've got some examples there. Page 2A it's an old financial report from 2020 from the Serra Club of Des Moines. I know Bill did this, and I wanted to show this. Let me see if I can get back out and get my screen up here. So I can at least hold this up. Okay. You can't read the numbers on here, but I think you can see Bill always amazed me. He was a top partner in, was it Deloitte and Touche, Bill?
Yes.
And Bill basically did everything on a yellow pad with a pencil. I never saw him do anything on an Excel spreadsheet. But basically, it starts with the opening balance, which would have been the closing balance at the last report. And then he has receipts, categorized sometimes by events and by fees. And then he has disbursements. And then he ends up with a check balance in the end that just shows how much balance is in the bank at that point. So it's a fairly simple thing, and it doesn't have to be fancy. We'll talk about some of the software a little bit later, but it's really basic. And then this is another example. This is from Jane Herrera, and she does it all in a spreadsheet. But basically, she does the same thing. It's the checking account, it's a balance forward, and then she has disbursements, and she has, I don't think she sorts them by, she has deposits, and then she has disbursements. So, and then at the end, how much cash is in the account, but it's fairly simple. But that would be a good example of a report to the board in terms of that. Let me get back to my slides here. Okay. Here's one thing that I have highlighted here that I think is pretty important. Sarah requests that every club do an annual audit of their bank accounts. You know, my experience is that volunteers don't want to sit around on a Saturday morning going through a checkbook, balancing everything out. So it usually doesn't take place. And I think that the most important thing is that at each meeting, that there be an exact copy of the most recent bank statement showing the balance to the board. Let me tell you why that is. We had an example about 10 or 12 years ago of a club where the treasurer kept reporting there was about $6,000 in the account. Something happened to the guy and somebody else jumped in, and it turns out there wasn't 6,000, there was $500. And there actually had been some misuse of funds. But nobody knew that because nobody ever saw the bank accounts. They just kept going off of what this guy said. I will tell you that the club got all the money back. His family basically, you know, ponied up what was necessary there. But I think it's just a good practice at each board meeting to share an exact copy of the most recent bank statement that shows the balance to the board. It may not be exact because the time that that's created, there may have been transactions that took place, but you can tell roughly that it's in the same ballpark. That's all that's really important there.
Hey Mike, this is John Kelly, Serra Club of Kokomo. What we do is we do electronic banking. So every month I get a notification from the bank when the new statement's available, and I basically download it as a PDF and send it to the entire board so everyone has a copy right away.
That's a great way to do it. Great way to do it. Yep. Okay, and then you need to report, one of the other functions for reporting is to report on any donations that are received. And that includes issuing tax letters for any donations that are $250 or over to the donor. And the most important line in that tax letter is it has to have no goods or services were provided to the donor in return for this gift. And that is actually on page 2C of the support documents if you downloaded those, but there's an example there. But that's an important function of the treasurer so that people can take deductions over $250 on their taxes if they have made those contributions. So, okay, I want to go into planning and budgeting and guidance here. You know, my experience is that most clubs don't do a budget. Basically, what they do is they use the prior year as kind of a de facto budget. But if a club does do annual budgeting, they're going to have to rely on the treasurer to come up with that. So it just depends on what your club does there. And then the treasurer often assists in financial planning for special events, like clergy appreciation meal events, like sisters, priests, seminarians, or bishops. And a lot of times the key there is to know what you did last year in terms of how much did we charge, how did we come out, and usually the treasurer is the one that has the exact information on all that. And then there are some clubs that host or sponsor regional conventions. Those are a pretty big event, and they take some special financial planning and kind of a separate spreadsheet to figure out if you've made money or not there. And we'll talk about a little bit about regional conventions down the line here. Okay, records retention. This is the one that I think is maybe overlooked by a lot of treasurers, but basically we like to have the treasurer be the person that has be the official retention of records for the club. And here's what we recommend is that there's a 5 years record retention for income and disbursements reports, bank records, membership records, and tax filings. And then the only time you really have to be concerned about longer records retention is if you do something like host a regional convention. A lot of times a club only hosts those every 7 or 8 years, but it's great to have that information to go back to as a reference if the next one's being planned. So you want to keep that information just a little bit longer. Okay, I think the most important rule here in terms of these financial transactions is that you keep it simple. Like I said, I've shown you some simple examples. There's bills, simple handwritten income and expense statement. You can have make sure that the most recent bank statement for current funds has the current funds balance. Some people like to use Excel, Quicken, QuickBooks. Those are okay, but they tend to complicate things. And some clubs have used proprietary accounting software. We really discourage that because if it comes to the point where you have to transfer the treasurer's duties to somebody else, they may not have access to that same proprietary accounting software. So it makes it very difficult to transfer. That's why I'd stick with Excel or just simple handwritten sheets there, but keep it simple. That's the rule. Here's some tips in terms of all the things we just talked about. The first one is to encourage members to pay annually. It saves both you and them work. And it basically, it's important to say if you're going to do that, what the dues have helped accomplish in the invoice. We have an example of that on page 4A. And you're not going to be able to read this. Hopefully you've got a copy in front of you, but I'm going to go back to my screen and just try to hold this up. This is what the Des Moines Club does. It's just a letter like this, and I'll tell you what it says. Please consider this your invoice for semi-annual dues for the period from January 2021 through June 2021. The semi-annual dues remains at $60 for regular members and $30 for spouse members. If you want to pay for an entire year, annual dues for the regular members are $120 and spouse members are $60. Thank you for your voluntary contributions to our seminary birthday fund. This is a way to request funds for people to put in addition to the dues. Because of your generous giving, we increased the birthday gift to $50 starting January 1st, 2017. We have received many grateful responses from the seminarians. Please continue your voluntary contributions to Seminary Birthday Fund when you remit your dues. Then it says, please send your check to treasurer of the Serra Club of Des Moines. In this case was Bill Cook. And then below that, Bill has this section here is called highlights. And he basically is trying to tell people what we did with the dues. So the Sisters Appreciation Event, May baskets were delivered, seminary and lunch. We picked up the cost of the luncheon. Priest Appreciation Event, $25 gift cards to Hy-Vee were presented to all priests in the diocese. $8,000 was presented to the bishop in connection with the annual bishop's purse. We added 20 new members. Good attendance at Zoom meetings was held in 2020. And we have many leadership roles that are being filled by members of the club. Thank you for your financial support and time. So it just gives, it's kind of it's an invoice, plus it's a little bit of a sales job in terms of what your dues are accomplishing within the club. Okay, here's another one. This is another tip here. When you have events, like we have Priest Appreciation Picnic, and again, the Des Moines Club does not charge for food, so when they send out an invoice for that, it's basically for the food of the event. So this is what the invoice, what the invitation and the invoice looks like. I'll read it to you just a little bit. It's where it's at, and it says everybody's invited to join. Cost of the event is $20 per person for Serrans. Please also consider an additional donation if possible to help pay for the meals for the priests. And then the actual bottom of the invoice is, the bottom of the sheet is the invoice. And one line that's really important to put on almost everything you do is, I am unable to attend, but I have an enclosed donation in the amount of X dollars. I don't know how it is, but the Des Moines Club has had tremendous luck with people who can't attend making contributions to pay, because they know they're paying for priest dinners or sisters baskets or whatever it is. But it's a great way to collect information. I think people are a lot more willing to give on a spot basis like that because they know exactly what the money's going to go to. Okay, let's go back to the spreadsheets here. Yes.
Excuse me, Mike, Lou Ferrero, Philadelphia. I can't find these example sheets. All I get is a download of your slides,
Okay, Lou,
supporting documents.
hold on here. Let me take your name down. I'll apologize again to everybody. I mentioned this before we started. We had a terrible time getting these support documents to pass from my computer to the Chicago office. In the end, I had to just pass the slides. The one that came out this afternoon does have all of the slides and all the support documents. But right now I have Tom. Tom, what's your last name?
Lulay,
Okay.
the same, Lulay.
Okay. And who else was on that? John Marston?
I'm Rob Lowe from Minot, North Central, North Dakota. And
Okay.
I just checked my list. I don't have the supporting documents either.
Okay. You guys probably downloaded ones before the one that came out this afternoon. That was the first time we got it to work, so I apologize for that. That's my fault.
Mike, this is Jim Miller in St. Louis. Can I make a comment about that? I
Yes.
did download the document that John Liston sent out at 4 p.m. today. And the examples that you're talking about are not interspersed with the slide presentation, but are at the rear of the slide presentation.
Right.
So
Yeah.
if you scroll down to the bottom, you'll find them.
Yeah, they're after the slides. That's right.
This is Rob Lowe again.
Yeah, Rob.
I downloaded the latest one you sent out, and I don't have it on my list at all. So
Okay.
I still need those.
Well, here's what I'll do. We'll post these. When I'm done with the recording here, we'll post the recording of this, and I'll post all the slides, and I'll also post all the support documents, because I think we got it now so that it'll work. But I'll double check it and make sure and I'll make sure they're interspersed so people can read them. Usually that's the way I do things here. So I do apologize though. I worked for 5 days trying to get these slides into the people, and either my computer is scanning things in an odd way, or they can't compact the data enough to make it transfer. So, okay, where were we? Tips. Okay, so when you have invitations go out for special club events, include a donations option to cover clergy meals. Again, people are usually pretty generous at paying for those if they know what they're doing. You can annually encourage members to consider a bequest in their estate plan or will with your Serra Club. I don't know how effective that is. Some people do that, but a lot of people, the foundation would tell me that they'd rather people do that to the foundation, but it's just up to people. So, and then here's an important one at the end for tips. Keep a key information backup notebook if you're the treasurer. And it should include your bank account numbers, your bank account contacts, passwords, and the IRS and state websites that you use in case of need. That's just in case anything happens so that somebody can react to it and without spending 4 months trying to figure out what's going on there. So, okay, now we're going to go into the second area, which is tax filings for nonprofit status. This first slide is just pretty basic to tell you why nonprofit status is important. First of all, it allows donors to write off contributions as charitable contributions. That would be your club members. Second, it prevents the club or the members from having to pay tax on the excess of income over expense. That is highly unlikely to happen, but the feeling, that's what Bob Campney always used to tell me, but he said it could be required as an issue for people and just complicate their lives, and they'll never give to Serra again if you do it. So you want to keep nonprofit status. And then if you're using the SI group exemption, which most clubs do, it protects our Serra International nonprofit exemption. So it's important to do. And here's what it takes to do it. You have to annually file the correct IRS Form 990. We'll talk about that in a second. That filing has to be done by the 15th day of the 5th month following the fiscal year end. Most of our clubs have a May 31st tax year end, so the correct 990 has to be filed by October 15th. One thing I'll tell you is it's really a great idea to not wait. This is a really simple thing for most clubs now. And what you want to do is make sure you get it in, I would say within the first month, and find out if you get any reaction from the IRS saying something's wrong, so you got time to react if you need to. I don't think that's likely, but again, there's no reason to wait to the last minute here. And then we've settled a lot of, we worked with the IRS to get, I think, 65 clubs reinstated for nonprofit status. And but the IRS notified us when they did that. They said from now on, you're going to be charged $25 a day if you're late filing your taxes. So that's a lot of money that could pile up pretty quick for a club. You don't want to do that. So that's maintaining nonprofit status. The IRS 990 update is don't forget, don't be late. Most clubs are able to use the 990N filing. And I don't know anything about this authentication process. I think there's a process there, but I don't think you have to use it. But and there are sites that will contact you saying that they will file your 990N for a fee. You don't need them. This thing is so simple, it's unbelievable. Let's see if I got it here. A club can file a 990N if your annual revenue is normally $50,000 or under. And in the support documents, there's actually a 4-page guidance from Bob Campney, which includes printouts from the IRS website. But I want to focus on something here that's important. It basically does say I think it's normally, or I think normally is the word, normally under $50,000. So if you happen to be in a year where you've hosted a regional event of some kind, or maybe you had a big fundraising activity, and let's say your number jumps up to 65 or 70,000. I think that if you could look back in the last 10 years and say that 7 or 8 times out of those 10 years we were under 50,000, you can still check that box because it's not a requirement for this year. It just says, is it normally $50,000 or under? And I would take that chance. I think it's a trivial thing from the IRS point of view, and I think you could make an easy, solid argument for that. If you have any questions about 990N filings, I'm going to recommend you contact Ed Terrell. He's on this phone on the call with us here today, and Ed's gone through this with I think a number of clubs, but he could give you some guidance there. I think that's it for the 990 ends for now. Anybody got any questions about 990 ends? Let me tell you how simple they are, just to give you a feeling. This is my understanding. You put in your club name, your official club name, which is the Serra Club of. There's no postulate, there's no saint, just the Serra Club of your area. You put in your EIN number, and then you check a box on the screen that says our club annually has annual revenues that are normally under $50,000, and you basically sign it electronically there, and it's done. Would that be a fair statement from everybody that's done it?
Yeah, that's a fair statement, Mike. There's basically two questions. First question, yes or no, is your club still in business? And you answer that yes. Second question is, does your club generally have annual revenue less than 50,000? Answer that yes, and then you go on. And there's some demographic type information you have to fill in. Takes all of about, you've got to set up an account first for your club. If you haven't set up an account, you've got to set up an account and then answer those questions. And then you submit the information. You'll get a pending notice from the IRS after you do that. And it also tell you in 7 minutes, you can check back to see if your return has been accepted. So wait about 7 to 10 minutes, go back in, your return is accepted, and then print out a copy for your files. I keep copies both electronically, and you keep a hard copy as well. But it really is, it's about a 10 or 15 minute process to do it. It's very, very simple. And I think all clubs, I think the majority, and maybe all clubs at this point, are classified in a way that they can file the postcard return. It's called a postcard return, the 990N. And so that's what you want to do. It's very, very straightforward and simple. I'm happy to walk anybody through it that needs help. But just a little bit of navigation and you can get it done.
Yeah, that's Ed Terrell talking, and he is the U.S. Council Treasurer, so he knows what he's talking about there, and he can help you on that. The one thing I would say is there's one other I think condition. You can't have there's a limit on the number of assets that the club can have, and so really large clubs may be limited from using the 990N. They may have to use either the 990EZ, which is about an 8-page form, or a full 990, but I would say that there's less than 10 clubs in the United States that fall into that category, and they all know who they are. Okay, thanks, Ed. Let's switch over. We're going to shift from, well, let's talk for a second about losing nonprofit status. A club loses it basically by failing to file the correct 990 form for 3 consecutive years. And believe it or not, it's happened to a number of clubs. There's a process you have to go through that costs $275 and another IRS form in order to reinstate yourself. And we have some expertise on how to do that if you get into that jam. The key is don't get in that jam if you can help it. So, okay. Now we're going to shift over from IRS taxes, income taxes, to some other areas here that sometimes get thrown at treasurers. This is, I want to talk first about the availability of state sales tax exemptions. If you're a nonprofit, sometimes you can avoid paying sales tax on many of the purchases that you make. And with sales taxes being in the 6 or 7% range for a lot of states right now, it's a big deal, particularly if you're hosting a dinner or something. But you can apply for a sales tax exemption number in the state in which you operate. We can't really tell you whether it's going to work in the state you're in. You have to do it state by state and figure that out with the state. But again, I'm sure we'd be glad to help you do that. Here's one creative idea. Dr. Ann Rote, who's the president, her club, the Lafayette, Indiana Club, was allowed to use their diocesan sales tax exemption number on some stuff. Now, I personally think that's a little dicey, but they do it, and so far they've gotten away with it. So I doubt your diocese is going to easily do that without asking some questions, but it's a creative idea. Okay, any questions on state sales tax exemptions? Okay, let's go on. Here's another one that comes up all the time. It's the association versus corporation, and this has to do with state requirements for corporations to file annually or biannually some kind of a statement in order to get a good standing status. I don't think you have to file anything if you are formed as an association. And I think that many clubs are formed as an association. There are some states that require you to form as a corporation. So I think I've listed here Ohio, New York, Florida. You don't have the option to file as an association. You have to file as a corporation, and you have to do this annual or biannual reporting. Here's the problem with it. Nobody really knows what the significance of not being in good standing is, but you don't want to be not in good standing. The problem is that there's a notice that comes out every year, or usually every other year, to whoever the contact person is. And if it were a volunteer organization, it may be that the treasurer has changed. The notice goes to the wrong person, and nobody gets the notice to file. The filing is really simple. It just basically asks you to list the address and the list and address of all the officers. But it's really easy to overlook when you get turnover in all volunteer organizations. So if you have it, it's something you need to put on a checklist. But if you're an association, it's not an issue. Anybody have any thoughts or comments on that? Okay. Let's go to liability insurance for club events. This is one of the free benefits that Serra offers. One of the things that comes from your dues. It's oftentimes required by a meeting venue, especially if alcohol is being served. And if it's what we found out right now in the Catholic Church in the United States, it isn't just the parish that wants to be insured, it's also the diocese. And so generally, if you're doing this, you want to put both down as insured groups. It's available at no cost for specific club functions. And I got direct contact Chicago office, but if you go to the serraus.org website under club resources, there's a frequently requested column, and it's the very first thing there. It's the form. It's an electronic form. You can do it right online. And the one new thing that we got this year is some clubs meet at the same place all the time, every month of the year. And we've now got the ability to issue a blanket insurance certificate for all regular meetings that are at one venue for the year. And that, again, is possible to do on that form. So, again, it's a benefit you got there. Some people have had a difficult time getting this in the past, but I think we've got it ironed out. And something to keep in mind if somebody requires you to have this kind of insurance. The insurance usually costs, if you had to buy it, it'd be like $250 to $500, I guess. But again, it's free through Serra, so there's no point in paying for it. Okay, maintenance of club membership rosters and officer lists. Again, I'm assuming that in your club, the treasurer is responsible for this. Sometimes it's the president, sometimes the treasurer and the president share this responsibility. But we now have Club Express for our portal, and there are tutorials.
This is Rob Lowe.
Yes, Rob.
Did you change slides?
I did.
Oh, okay. It came up late. I'm sorry.
That's okay. It just depends on the speed of the internet where you're at. So are you on maintenance of club membership roster and officer list?
When I was membership chairman, I was, but now that I'm treasurer, I'm not. I was going to bring that up at the end, but as treasurer, I don't maintain anything on membership. I don't even collect membership dues. I just take them in and record them as I get them.
Okay, well, that's a different approach in your club, but that somebody there is responsible for these functions.
Well, that's the membership chair.
Okay, good.
Yep.
So if you're an administrator, there's a tutorial available on how to use Club Express to do these things. People that are administrators, and usually we have one or two people in a club that can be administrators that can make changes to the membership or the officer list. And the clubs have to designate the members with administrative authority to the Chicago office. And they're the ones that do that. So now we're going to go through a really quick discussion of collection policies. This is a big deal for a lot of treasurers. Rob, apparently you don't have this problem either. That's membership, huh?
No.
Okay. So I'm going to talk some about three different approaches to this, or two different approaches, I guess. One is what the Des Moines Club does, and that is discussed here on the support document page called 7A. It's just a one-page deal, and I could show it to you, but it's too small to read, so I'll tell you briefly what it says. This is from Bill Cook, who's on the line, so you can ask him questions about it. But Bill has been an excellent at collecting dues for us, so we call him Guido. It says here, when I took over as treasurer in 2004, all invoices were being sent by mail, so you had to acquire envelopes and stamps. Eventually, as more and more members acquired computers, I started to send the invoices via email. Today, I have 12 older members who don't have computers that I still have to mail them the invoice. Sending invoices via email is much faster and cheaper. Plus, if you have to send second and third notices, it's much easier to do it via email. What do you do on a handful of members who haven't responded after you have sent them 3 email notices? I usually send them an invoice in the mail. In many cases, their computer is considering my email notices as junk mail, and most members don't look at their junk mail regularly. If I know a member is close friends with a member who has not sent his dues, I ask them to remind the member to send his dues. Finally, I get on the telephone is the final step I take. If I get to the next billing cycle and I have 1 or 2 members that did not pay their dues from the previous cycle, and I have deleted them from the portal, I will send them an invoice and remind them that they did not pay previous cycle dues, and I usually get about a 50% success rate on that. If we have to drop a member from the portal because he has not paid his dues, we still keep that member on our club email list. We send them notices about upcoming events like priests or sisters appreciation events. They will sometimes send in a donation for that event. In summary, the treasurer has to be persistent, but do so in a manner where he is tactful with the members. That's Bill's comment. Here is the Bethlehem Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania Club, about 25 members. Jane Herrera was the club treasurer when this was composed. It says here, I attach a copy of the dues notice that I mail, including a self-addressed stamped envelope to make returns easy. Also sent is a letter detailing what we've accomplished since the last dues collection and telling what we hope to accomplish in the new dues period, so members can see how the club uses their money. This snail mailing is possible with a club of fewer than 30 members. In January, this is really interesting, January 2020, we began a pay-as-you-are-able dues collection with a suggested $80 full member rate and a $40 spouse or under 35 rate. This has been a great success. 2 members give less than the suggested rate, and many members give more than the suggested rate. We have received several $100s over the suggested rate each time as this has been tried. And then Jane has a copy of her invoice that she sends out. I don't think there's anything special. It's page 7B in the special documents, in the support documents here. And it just talks about pay what one is able. So, and there's a letter of what the club is hoping to do with the money too. Okay, I know this is an issue for some people. Is there any need for some discussion on this, or does everybody feel like they've got this one mastered?
I think this is Renee with Fort Worth. The more you can shift to online payment, which we do through our website, we do RSVPs to events, we do dues, we do extra donations like seminarian Christmas gifts, whatever. That is awesome. And we have an option to cover the cost of the fee. Probably 90% of people who pay online are covering the cost of fees, and it's kept us out of the stamp business. And there's downloadable spreadsheets on the back end, and you would be surprised because elderly members still embrace online payment of dues and other things.
That's a
Hi,
great.
I have a question.
Yes, who is this?
Oh,
state
I'm sorry. I thought she was finished, but this is Mary Ellen Thorne in Boulder, Colorado. We are always giving our gifts to the priests and seminarians in cash. which is very hard to account for. Does anyone else do that, or do people write the checks from the club for these gifts?
Mary Ellen, can I ask you to repeat that you give the checks from people rather than the
No, no. We give cash currency
Okay.
that is in an envelope for the seminarian or the religious, and then they are delivered to their parish or their diocese building. But sometimes it's not hand to hand. Sometimes it is left with the person at the front desk,
Right.
because as a seminarian, you don't have contact with them. Does everyone else do currency, or who writes checks from the club that would say that it's from the club, the Serra Club?
Fort Worth does crisp $50 bills in Christmas cards to all our seminarians, but we deliver them to the bishop's office and they are given to the seminarians at their annual Christmas dinner with the bishop. So we don't worry that each guy gets, we don't take things to parishes.
This is Rob Lowe from Minot, North Dakota. We write checks for everything, and we give a lot of checks out to the seminarians and priests. And we also fund a lot of priest retreats and stuff like that. So, but we do checks for everything. We've got to have records for that. I don't know how you would keep a record otherwise.
Bill Cook, could I ask you if you're still on? What do we do for those birthday gifts for the seminarians? Did we use checks?
Mike, yeah, this is Bill. I rolled off as treasurer in 2021, but up until then, we always wrote checks to them.
Okay.
And I don't know what they're doing now, but I presume it's a continuation of that.
Okay.
In
I
St. Louis,
was told.
we write
Mhm.
checks to the seminarians, priests, honor folks that speak at our meetings. We'll write a check out to them as a gift. About the only cash that we do is to the children in the 6th grade as we are awarding them an essay contest award, and we will do that in cash.
Someone told me that one of the seminary that we support has international students, and maybe they don't have a checking account. But I don't know what you've run across. Has anyone run across an international seminarian not having access to a U.S. bank account?
Any comments on that from anybody?
Hello, this is John from Serra Club of McAllen. I was curious if anybody uses to collect their dues or collect their payments for their Serra Club um, events, like their appreciation dinners, etc. If they use, does anybody use their Cash App or anything like that? Thank you.
That's a good question, and I'm gonna turn to. We had a question earlier today from Ann Zadansky, and I think the North Houston Club, asking if Club Express has any abilities to let people pay dues with credit cards online. And I asked Don Simino, and he kind of jumped on here at the last minute. But Don, could you tell us what the possibilities are with Club Express along those lines for a club? You need to unmute. There you go.
Yeah. It's something that we're going to have to take a look at. Club Express does have a way for a club to set up an event and have people pay for it online, based on perhaps if there are some different activities that people have to register for separately, and those activities have their own fees and so forth. So, and we do have a few clubs who have done that, tried it out. Basically, what you have to do in order to have funds collected via Club Express and then deposited in the club's account is to set up the account in Club Express. And in order to do that, you would have to contact the office in Chicago and provide them with some basic information, such as the information on the financial institution where the account is, if it's a checking account or a savings account, or a personal account or a business account, and those kinds of things. And then they can go ahead.
I'm sorry, what?
I'm sorry, what?
No.
Did somebody have a question? Okay, I guess not. Anyway, so we do have some clubs that have done that. And I know I personally did it for my club. We had an event. We have an event in the diocese every year where we host a lunch with a mass and entertainment for the religious women. And so we set that up in Club Express, gave people a link so they could go in and register, and then they could pay. They could say they were going to pay by check, in which case they sent in a check, or they could pay it online using a credit card or PayPal, and it did work. The funds got collected by Club Express under the Serra International account, and then I think it's 3 times per month they will distribute the funds to the different bank accounts. So if it's a credit card, of course, then there's credit card processing fees, and if the amount you're charging is a fairly small amount, like you have an event and you're charging people $10, the processing fee can be a significant portion of the amount that was charged. But for dues, if it's usually that'll be a higher number, and then the processing fees won't be as high a percentage of the amount. The question of having the clubs collect dues is something we have talked about, the potential to do that, but we have not set it up yet. And I've been thinking about it, and the only way I can see that we can do that with Club Express would be to set it up as an event and maybe call it dues collection. And it would be a recurring event. If your club collects dues 4 times a year or 2 times a year or whatever, then you could set up something like that. But we haven't gone into actually figuring out all the details of how to do that. But that would be what would be required, is to set it up that way. Club Express collects funds, the amount that our subscription costs each month from the Serra International bank account. And most of their customers, and the way Club Express operates is it's an organization where members pay their dues online to the organization. Serra International is not set up that way. Serra International does not collect dues directly from members. The clubs collect the dues from the members, and then the clubs pay what they owe to the higher level, Serra International, and then that gets split out to International and the Council for those of us in the U.S. So there are some things that we would need to look into as to what's the way to do that. I think that probably if we're going to be able to have clubs have members pay their dues online, we'll probably have to have a certain set of things that we say have to be standardized as far as how the clubs do it, just to make sure that it can be handled properly. But we're just in the initial stages right now of trying to figure out what's the best way to set it up so that clubs can have their people pay dues online. And Zadansky was the one that Mike mentioned who asked the question early, and she said, well, what about alternate payment methods, such as Zelly or Zelle? I'm not sure how you pronounce that. I've never worked with it. But basically, there are a few things like that especially younger people use, where they can transfer money from their account to someone else's account, and it doesn't go through a bank. And that's something that the way that can be done using Club Express. Say if a member wanted to pay to attend an event, one of the things you can do is you can say the member paid for the event by an alternate method. In other words, something that's not processed through Club Express. The alternate way could be if somebody mails you a check, okay, then that would be an alternate way to pay the dues, and then somebody for the club would have to go in and mark it that it has been paid. And so I think the same thing would apply for one of these direct pay, fund transfer type applications that a lot of the younger folks use. But anyway, I know you're short on time here, but we will be taking a look at that. And if anybody has any specific comments or suggestions on that,
It's Rob Lowe from Minot. This is Rob Lowe from Minot.
Go ahead, Rob.
Another thing to consider is if you use debit card instead of credit card, there's no fee. That's just a thought.
I had a comment on that also. The Zelle that you mentioned and Venmo and some of these, I think that might be an easier and more cost-effective way if a club wants to do electronic, payments for their fees. We haven't quite done that yet from Lorraine County Serra Club in Ohio, but we're looking at that. We've had club members ask about it, and like you said, you save the fee. The money goes right into the bank account. I think that might be an answer for at least for someone smaller. But
the bottom line is that if the funds are going to be processed through Club Express, then there's going to be a fee. Okay. If it's processed some other way, then there won't be a fee. But in that case, Club Express is not involved in any way in handling the money.
Renee Underwood, if you're still on, did you guys say you have a Cash App?
We do ours. Our website for Fort Worth Serra Club is an e-Catholic website, which is heavily used by parishes. And so we subscribe to their online giving platform. And so it's all integrated, but there's no delay. If I were to make a payment right now, in just a matter of a few minutes, it's in our club bank account. It's saved so much time for us, Now there are fees, but again, we set everything up to at the option of the member that they can elect to cover the fee. If they check that box, it charges them another 3%. And so if they're paying quarterly dues of 100, it'll process 103. And they get an email receipt immediately. My treasurer gets a receipt immediately, and I'm copied on all of those.
Renee, does your club have its own e-Catholic account?
Yes, we do.
Okay. That's the drawback there. That would be a drawback for other clubs because basically you would have to pay a web hosting company to host the website.
But our website has made a huge difference in our membership and our promotion. I mean, I think a website for a club is pretty important, especially if you're trying to attract younger members. And so we made the decision to be in the website business first, and then payments through our website came a few months later.
Yeah, but the point is that your club decided that you wanted to have your website, and so you basically are paying a web hosting company to host that website. So if a club is looking for a way, it already has a website, let's say, some other way, they would either have to switch it to eCatholic or they would have
but
to.
You can integrate other payment processors into other web applications. I just mentioned eCatholic because it's a Catholic owned company and most of the parishes out there are using that brand. But there's other providers.
Yeah, no, all I'm
Okay.
saying, my parish uses eCatholic also, and I'm an administrator for, some things on the parish website. But all I'm saying is, that works fine for your club, but that's something another club would have to consider is that's the way they
Yeah.
want to go.
Well, I think we've heard some different options here. Hopefully we can explore those later on, but uh, and I'm going to let Don do that. And there's a lot of clubs that do it in different ways. So for the interest of time, let me finish up the presentation here, and then I'll stay on and answer any questions I can, and maybe some of the other folks can too. This
Hey,
next
Mike,
slide, yes,
this is Tom Lule in Oregon, and I hate to
yes,
leave. I've got a lot of important information, but I do have another event, so I'll have to
okay,
sign off and the stuff online tomorrow.
no problem.
Thank you. It's been very helpful. I appreciate everybody.
Okay, thanks, Tom. These are just some other forms and documents that I attached in the support documents. One is the new member application form, and this has been revised recently. I did not attach the Spanish version. We have a separate Spanish version if you need that. Both of those are also available if you go to the serraus.org website and you look under Club Resources tab. Under Frequently Requested, you'll find the membership application forms, the current ones. There's a club transfer form that isn't used very much, but that's when somebody moves from one club to another. There's a copy of that in the support documents. And then there is a 3-page club treasurer position description that kind of summarizes the responsibilities that are talked about in this presentation. I'm going to finish with a treasurer's prayer. I composed this about 5 years ago, but I thought there was something that maybe treasurers needed to pray in order to do their jobs well, and this is what it is, and we'll finish with this. The prayer is, Lord Jesus Christ, grant me the grace to be a good steward of my club's financial resources, patient and understanding, yet persistent in collecting dues from our members, timely and accurate in making deposits and paying approved expenses, helpful with financial guidance to make future club events successful, gracious in accepting financial gifts to our club, joy-filled by the knowledge that my work, especially the most tedious and detailed, is indispensable to the success of my club in achieving the Serra mission. Amen. And that is basically the end tonight. I just want to thank everybody for being a treasurer and for being a Serran, and for all that you do to promote vocations, especially as a treasurer. I mean, you're kind of a hidden asset in all the clubs, but you're really appreciated, and I know how much work that is. So thank you very much. I'm going to stay on here, but for now, I'm going to let people sign off if they want. I'll keep the recording going in case there are any more questions or comments. But we'll call this officially at an end.
Mike, Renee, I have a quick question.
Yes,
Are all
Renee.
the documents on the resource tabs of Serra US Council, like the treasurer job description and these various forms?
That is, but some of the examples that I used are not.
Okay.
But what will happen is there'll be a recording of this session. It's going to get a little truncated at the beginning because I didn't turn it on in time, but I think I got all the documents. And then there'll be a recording that'll be converted to YouTube. You can listen to what we just said tonight. There's also going to be the PowerPoints that will be in PowerPoint format in case you want to use those for any reason to adjust them or make presentations of your own. And then there will be the support documents, which will be a PDF, and they will be the PowerPoints 3-up on a page with notes, and then also the support documents. And I'll try to get those interlinked so that they're behind the pages where they belong, where they're referenced. But that's
And the
not up
other
here.
I wanted to say about the electronic documents, it would be really helpful to get those budget templates in pure Excel, not just a scan of somebody's handwritten PDF or, I mean, if that'd help us use the document if there was a template that we could use.
I'll do some thinking about that. Maybe I can ask I know Jane Herrera, I don't know if she's still on here, but I think that we could get hers. Jane, do you still have that?
Yeah, hi, Mike. I made that up myself, Mike.
Yeah,
Are
but
you there?
but it is a template that somebody could use.
Well, I don't know about that. It's just something I made up. But I'll have a look at it again. It's been a while, Mike. I'll look
Okay,
at it again.
that's okay. I appreciate it, Jane. Thank you. We'll do some
Sure.
thinking about that, Renee, and see what we can come up with.
Mike,
Okay.
Mike, I had a question. This is Jim Miller in St. Louis.
Yeah.
The liability insurance for an event, and I'm familiar how to submit that and request it and so forth. So let's take a hypothetical example. We have a trivia night, and we submit for a liability insurance, and we obtain it. What kind of not catastrophe? What kind of accidents does that cover? Who is protected in that case?
You're going above my pay grade, Jim.
Okay. All right.
I think it would be like standard liability insurance would cover for anything except gross negligence, I think. And
But the question I'm having is though, are we protecting the proprietor, the people that are hosting that? Are we
yeah,
protecting the members?
no, it is the proprietor that it's the parish or the
Okay.
diocese.
All right.
And the only reason we usually take it is because they require it. They may allow free use of their facility, but they may require that. So
Got it.
Yeah,
Yep.
this is John Kelly, Serra Club of Kokomo. We hold a priest versus seminarian softball game, and it's held at our Kokomo Municipal Stadium. And they will want certain entities identified on the insurance that need to be protected. So wherever you're hosting your event, if they want to be protected, you want to make sure their name and whatever is included on that insurance. So those that want to be protected are protected.
I will follow up though, Jim, with John Liston. He's the guy that negotiated the recent deal, and see if the club too is protected there. Clubs usually aren't too big of targets because they don't have any money, but
Well, true.
I have a
All right.
question regarding that insurance.
yes.
This is Mary Ellen Thorne again in Boulder, Colorado. So if we are having an event, say a priest appreciation religious dinner at a restaurant, I would assume, am I not correct, that we don't need insurance for that because we're basically paying for the liquor?
It's basically they
establishment.
have their own insurance and it's covered in the meal cost that they're
Gotcha.
charging.
So it's only if we have something on the site of the parish or church grounds.
Yeah, or it could be
Sort
a
of.
I don't know, a nonprofit facility like I don't know, a Knights of Columbus Hall or something. There's
Gotcha.
something like that. But if they're in business, they have their own liability insurance and it's built into their costs.
Have any of your clubs done bingo on a regular basis for fundraising?
Doesn't sound like it.
Okay. That's my answer. Thank you.
Somebody else had a comment here.
Yeah, this is John Kelly again on the insurance. I know we do a Christmas party for the clergy and so on, and at the facility it's at, they request insurance. So that's where it's really beneficial to us to be able to go through Serra to get that insurance.
Yep. One thing I would advise is apply early. I think we've shortened the time quite a bit with the new, we have a new insurance carrier on that, but problem in the past was we weren't getting the requests in soon enough to get the certificates out for people. They like to have those certificates like a month in advance sometimes if they're holding a facility for you.
Yeah, I know in the past I've had some delays and had to work with John, but pleased to report that the last time for this year when we did the softball game, I had it turned around within 24 hours.
That's an excellent report. Okay. Anybody else with a question or a comment? Anything you want? Okay.
Thank you so much.
You bet. And again, when I get the all the documents and the recording put together and we post it on the website, I will send that to everybody. I'll send it to all treasurers again, so that hopefully you'll get that, and that way maybe I won't miss anybody who's looking for it. So I
Thanks
do
so much.
apologize for the problem. I've never had the problem with support documents like ever before. And then all of a sudden, we couldn't find anything that would work on this until tonight. And I thought we had it, but again, tonight's have the support documents all at the back, and that's because Ann McCormick didn't know how to insert them correctly. So that's not her fault. Just we were late getting it done. So listen, thank you all for being treasurers, and thank you for your time tonight. I really appreciate it. I thank you for the special help I had from Ed Terrell and Bill Cook and Jane Herrera and Don Semino. And I think that question, Don, I think of what clubs could do with Club Express or other alternatives is an important one that we should study in the future too. So,
Thank you, Mike.
I
okay.
agree.
Nice
Thank you,
job.
everybody.
There's
Nice
so much
job, Mike.
variation
Okay.
among the clubs
I-
that.
I know
Yeah.
we use Vanco in Colorado, and they're very reasonable in their fees
Okay. Vanco. Yep.
for a payment portal.
Right.
All right, thanks.
God bless everybody.